Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr, and this is episode 149, and it is called Songs of Adventure, and I hope you enjoy it. The party stopped. They had marched a good long way and were leery of the danger right here, so near to safety. Theron Lightborn held up his hand to keep anyone from prematurely making a break for the hilltop fort. "Latala, do you see any enemies in the fort?" he asked. An elf spoke up. "Nay, lord, the way is clear." "Excellent. Now they may be hidden in the woods to our left and right. If so, they will likely rush for us as soon as we break cover." There was a murmur of agreement. "So we're going to run for the fort. It looks deserted, but it's the only defensible place around here. So follow me!" Theron charged, sword held high. Latala swiftly overtook him, her long, agile legs pumping almost in a blur. The two dwarves, Brock and Thrak, stumped behind at a surprisingly good pace. They yelled and waved their clubs. Behind them, the halfling, Lily Butterbutt, squealed, waving her dagger and making the best progress she could. "Here they come!" Theron yelled. The orcs poured out of the woods to both sides, making their way to the party as they started to climb the hill. The party redoubled their efforts. Lily, who had already been yelling at the top of her lungs, started screaming upon hearing Theron's warning. She pumped her short legs as best she could, but was still falling behind the others. Latala and Theron were the first to make it to the fort. "Bad news, Theron!" Latala yelled after taking a quick look around. "The walls are intact, but the gates are broken. They can't be closed." "Then we make our stand here," Theron replied. "Take the wall at the top of the gate so you can get a good field of fire. I'll make sure Brock, Thrak, and Lily make it." He started back down the hill. Even now, Lily was barely halfway up to the fort. Brock and Thrak, however, were closing in. Theron passed them and rushed to Lily, who was panting and holding her side, where she clearly had a stitch. Theron scooped her up and rumbled up the hill. The orcs were very close now. Though the ones closest to them all bore axes or clubs, a few arrows from orcs further down the hill were starting to fall around them. "I can't look behind me. How close are they, Lily?" he asked the halfling in his arms. Lily's scream was reply enough. He barreled into the fort mere steps ahead of the closest orcs. He put Lily on the ground and checked her for injuries. Fortunately, it seemed that her being exhausted was the only issue. Meanwhile, Brock and Thrak had closed ranks behind him, blocking the wide-open gateway as well as two burly dwarves could. "Come and taste my club, orc scum!" Brock yelled. The orcs kept their charge, but were slowed when a pair in front were taken down by Latala's arrows. "Join the fight when you can, my brave little halfling," Theron said, and rubbed the top of her head. She grinned up at him as he straightened and turned back towards the gate. Theron raised his sword and gave a battle cry. The orcs, who were upon the stalwart pair of dwarves, gave throaty cries that turned to screams of pain and fear as Theron cut into them. He fought with prodigious skill, moving forward through the press of bodies like he was wading a river. Behind him, Brock and Thrak were hitting and swinging, and in some cases kicking, elbowing, punching, and even biting any orc they could reach. Above, Latala's bow sang note after piercing note, and where her eye fell, her hand followed, and an orc fell. She occasionally ducked or sidestepped as the orc archers chose her as their main target. Theron's sword was slick with orc blood, and he could only see the massive bodies in front of him, still emboldened by their numbers despite their losses. As he pulled his sword back, preparing to attack a particularly large, loathsome specimen, he heard a small voice behind him, and indeed below him. "Theron, look out!" He glanced behind, and saw a lithe little orc who had been about to stab him from behind. The blade, which looked poisoned, would have snuck up between his armor plates and given him a fatal wound. But behind him was Lily, who had taken her dagger and plunged it deep into the orc's back. The deadly blade fell from its slack fingers. Theron gave a grateful nod to Lily, and as he turned back to the battle, he shouted, "Well done, my little friend!" He even caught, from the corner of his eye, the start of Lily's beaming smile. The fight continued on. Sometimes it seemed they were on the verge of pushing the orcs down the hill. Then they would rally, and the party found itself pushed almost inside the fort again. Theron and the others all lost track of how many they slew, how many small injuries or near misses they had. Finally, there was a beeping noise from Theron's pocket. He held up a hand and pulled his phone out. He checked his message. "Mom says dinner's ready." The group groaned. "Us too?" Brock and Thrak asked. She says your mom says to come home too, Theron confirmed. They put their sticks on their shoulders, except Lily, who let hers dangle by her side, and they headed down the hill. Lily was lagging behind, and Theron, noticing this, stopped and waited for her. "Everything okay?" he asked. She stopped in front of him. "Aren't you going to call me Lily anymore, Theron?" Lily asked pointedly. "Okay, Lily," Theron agreed. "Do you not want to go home?" Lily seemed unsure of what to say. Finally, she shook her head. "I know it's been tough," Theron said. "We're all having to adjust, and maybe you most of all. But I still love you. I'm your brother, and if you have any troubles, you can come to me, okay?" Lily didn't say anything, but she managed a weak smile and nodded. "There's my brave halfling," Theron said. "Now let's go home, the victorious adventurers. And thanks for saving me from that sneaky little orc," he added. He grabbed her by the waist, swung her up, and plopped her on his shoulders. Then they went home, singing songs of victory and adventure and family. And that's our story for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments about this episode or previous episodes, cryptobiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. And thank you for listening. Words and music, copyright 2020, CryptoBiography LLC, all rights reserved. Characters and events are fictional, fictionalized, or satirical.